Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Real Estate Investing 365. I have an awesome guest today. Her name is Sunitha Rao from Indianapolis, Indiana. Well, that's where she lives now, anyways. I think she's originally from the Boston area. Hey, Sunitha, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Doing great. And we can also go by Sunny, if that's right, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for
A ray
being
of
here.
sunshine.
Like sunshine. Well, she is very perky, everybody. She's like a ball of energy. So Sunny's a good name for her. Anyways, so Sunny, tell me a little bit about your history, where you came from, how you got started in real estate, and then we'll kind of go into your first deal after that.
Okay, this might take a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I am in Indianapolis now. These days I work for a biopharma company. My full-time job is in corporate financial planning. So doing like budgets and running expenses and stuff for my company. I also do real estate on the side, which I'm hoping to grow into a full-time profession. However, real estate is kind of my third career move, my third retirement plan. With my first retirement plan starting off when I was very young, I played tennis professionally for almost 10 years. I dropped out of school after sixth grade, turned pro at the age of 14, competed until I was about 23, and retired at that point. And so after that, I was kind of trying to figure out my next step. So when I was on tour, I didn't have a ton of money. I didn't have family backing. I didn't have sponsors. I retired around, I think it was 2009. So the recession, everything happened in 2008. And so it was really hard to find any company that had kind of like the discretionary income or the liquidity where they would want to put it into an athlete of all things, right? So life on tour was definitely a struggle, and that was one of the forces that kind of shaped my mindset when it came to money, because there were many times where I didn't know where I was going to get my next meal. I didn't know how I was going to pay for my flight back or my hotel room that night. Literally, I mean, there's one time where I flew to India for a tournament, and I got there and I was like looking at my bank account. I was like, all right, well, I think I have to win this match because like I don't know how I'm gonna get home if I don't, you
How
know?
so? Wait, how old were you at this time? Sixth grade?
Oh no, yeah, not quite that young. So when I was doing that, I was like in my teens. So probably at like 18, 19 when I was really struggling financially. I was doing well professionally, but the tour is one where it's very heavy on capital. So it's like being on vacation every week, right? So you have to pay for your hotel, and that's without like travel hacking or credit card points or anything like that. Everything that people do these days. So like you have to pay for your hotel, your travel, your hotel. I already said that twice. Okay.
It's
And your
okay.
food and your coach, and every little expense comes out of your pocket, you know? And so like expenses can run well over 100K a year. So even when you're doing well, all that money is like just flying out the window,
So
you
was
know?
your parents with you at that time when you dropped out of school?
When I dropped out of school, yes, they were with me when I was 11.
Okay, I was like, geez.
Yeah, I mean, it was honestly just as much of their choice. So
Yeah.
when I say their, I mean my father's choice. My father really wanted an athlete.
Hmm.
He had played soccer in India. Both of my parents are Indian. He had played soccer in India and wanted to be a professional athlete. Those dreams never got realized. I came along and he was like, all right, so she's gonna be the one that realizes my athletic dreams. So yeah, they definitely supported, like they wanted me to play. They supported that decision. Even if it was probably more their decision than mine. It's debatable.
Sure.
So the money struggles and everything came about when I was in my late teens, and that was really tough. And and that happened over an extended period of time. So it's definitely something that has continued to stay with me, has really influenced my lifestyle decisions even now, 15 years later, and it probably always will. So then I retired. Just really wanted to do something different. I could make good money teaching. In retrospect, if I was a little bit smarter, I probably would have stayed in Florida, which is where I had grown up, got some cushy tennis job, and then just bought real estate. But I wasn't aware enough at that time because real estate
Right.
in Florida in 2008, it hadn't recovered from the recession. So there were amazing opportunities in great areas. We're talking like price to rent ratios of 2%. Um, everywhere, just everywhere. So I wish that was the path that I'd taken, but that is not the path that I chose. I decided that I needed to get an education. Hard to get an education when you're a sixth grade dropout.
Did you homeschool? Were your parents homeschooling you while you're traveling around? Because if everybody doesn't know, I did meet up with Sunny here recently, and she's very smart. Like, she is very, good to talk to and everything. So you must have had homeschool.
No, I mean, I was supposed to be homeschooling, but I didn't actually do a thing.
Oh
Nothing.
man.
Well, because
Wow.
like I was training like 9 hours a day. I was 13, 14 years old, on the court from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., taking a lunch break, then on the court for another 2-3 hours, and going to the gym. Like, where is the time to study? I am exhausted by the end of the day. I'm just like surviving to train.
Yeah.
I should have been, but that's also why I say, yeah, it was probably partly my decision. What 11-year-old is not going to be like, yeah, let's not go to school and run around in the sun all day.
Right. Exactly.
I mean,
It's a
decision is
dream.
that, but no one actually enforced my schooling or anything. I didn't do anything. So that definitely limited my my aspirations, not my aspirations, my possibilities when I retired. Couldn't really get a job doing much of anything with my brain. So I went back to college. The only place that would accept me, which was my local community college, but I had to take remedial classes for all of the high school classes that I missed. And even to this day, I still don't understand geometry, but that's probably another story altogether. We don't have to go there.
That's okay.
So yeah, I went back to my local community college, worked like 3 jobs. I bartended at night, taught tennis during the day at different locations wherever I could, would go on 3 hours of sleep because I still had no like money. So I was just I saw an opportunity to make money off of like stable paychecks. So I was just like full speed ahead, sleeping 3 hours a night, going from one job to the next, in school, taking like a 70% course load. And eventually, through a series of kind of happenstance meetings and me just, I guess, being me, I somehow landed a position at a private business school, an undergrad program, but they only offered a business degree up in Boston. And I ended up somehow being able to land that on academic merit, which is really funny. Ridiculous, right? But I managed to like get in contact with the right people, and they gave me that opportunity, which I'm thankful for. So at that point, because of the way my career was, going from paycheck to paycheck, but that paycheck being highly variable and very unstable, I was just at a point where I was like, get me a good job where I know how much I'm going to make. I know my expenses. I know my like inflows and outflows, and I can just breathe. I don't have to be stressed about money. That just was my end goal. So went to college, got good grades, got a great job out of college, landed at a Fortune 500 aerospace company. They were in the defense industry, and it was in a management training program. So I was like, yeah, life is great. Life is awesome. Stable paycheck. It was great. It still is great, obviously, since I'm still in the corporate world. But that's when, I don't know, there are pros and cons. And that's when I started to become aware of the cons. So there were people who were working there, who had been working there for 40, 50 years, these insane numbers that you don't even hear anymore. And I'm sitting there doing the math, and I'm like, okay, so 50 years, that is almost 2 times longer than I have been alive.
Yeah.
Like coming back here
every
for
day.
that long, and saying that to someone like me who was used to being in a different city every week at a different tournament. Things were constantly changing. I was in charge of my own schedule from the time I was out of sixth grade, basically, right? Like calling my own shots, having more control over my destiny and freedom, and thinking that I had to like commit to that life for that long was tough. But it only got tougher as I got to know my coworkers better, as I started to progress and I started to see kind of the trade-offs that had to happen, So as you get further in corporate America, I'm sure like everybody knows this, like you have to sacrifice more, put in more time, you know, nights, weekends, and then hopefully maybe your company will appreciate you and give you that 3.5% increase every year. And then you're going to go back to working nights and weekends. And that was just, again, after having that freedom, that was something that was really, really tough for me to swallow. Like, you're going to tell me I'm worth 3% more every year, and I'm going to give up so much of my life for that, and for like the pride and the recognition of doing a good job. And it was just kind of hard for me to swallow, because what I was seeing was that people weren't happy because they were essentially giving up their options. They didn't have any other options. Like, they had to do this because of lifestyle creep, because of family, because of what have you. And I didn't want to give up those options in the
Yeah,
long,
I
you know,
understand.
like there had to be a better way. And when, as an athlete, like, you learn to strategize, you don't give up, you try to figure, you refuse to believe that there is a way that you're out for the count, you know? And so I was like, okay, yeah, I signed up for this life, but there's got to be a way to optimize it, you know? And so after, I think it was like 2.5 years, I switched to a new company and then started reevaluating my life. At this time, I was also in grad school. So I had another set of like chains that I'd willingly thrown myself into. Um, so I didn't have any money to invest anywhere. I was just trying to get through grad school without any debt. Luckily, the first employer had a very generous tuition reimbursement program. But then I left that behind to go to another job that was better paid, less tuition reimbursement, but still, like, it didn't allow me to do anything different for a while. But what I could do, and what I did do, was I educated myself. So I was like, okay, I don't have the money right now. What can I do to get myself from point A to point B more quickly? If I can't invest, I might as well learn as much as I can. And then when I have the opportunity to do these things, I can really like hit a home run or do the absolute best that I can with what I have at that point.
So real quick, did you how did you know about investing? Like the investing that you were thinking about doing, was it like in the stock market, your 401k, or did you know people that were in real estate investing, or nothing? You just
I had no idea. I had no clue. I
you just
did.
kind of
I mean,
thought,
and this is someone, I have a degree in business and bachelor's business and finance, and a master's in business, but I still didn't know a ton about personal finance. I just knew how to save and to how to hoard my money like
yeah.
squirrels would nuts before winter. That was the only thing that I knew.
Which is crazy. You go to college and in business and finance, and they never really taught you about like compound interest, or maybe in the finance world, but not with about growing your own money and buying
Exactly.
assets that appreciate over time and grow your wealth, and other people paying them down. They don't teach
Exactly.
any of that, right?
No, they don't. They really
Yeah.
don't. You learn about how to do it so that corporations can benefit from your knowledge, not so
Yeah.
that you can actually optimize your own life, which is a whole nother topic altogether.
Yeah. And then also real quick before we move on, when you touched on that you saw these people working at this job for 40, 50 years, and it's like, gosh, you just couldn't imagine doing that, because like the type of personality you are, and like a lot of real estate investors are, you like change, you like things changing and happening
Challenges.
and challenges. And it's not that you're never going to work again, because you'll probably end up working harder doing your real estate business, but it's the fact that in a corporate job, you're stuck to doing exactly what they're telling you to do, right? Forever.
Exactly.
For 50 years, you have to listen to them. You can't go off on road A or B or C, and you can't take these tangents and try to do stuff better. So people think, oh, when you say I didn't want to work anymore or work, I want to do my own thing. Well, you're still working, but you have the
Yeah.
options to like broaden your horizons and do
Instead
different.
of people just hearing, I don't want to work, I don't want to work for someone, and they're like lazy millennial.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not the case at
Not the
all.
case. Yeah.
So,
Okay. So sorry. Anyways, back to you got a job at a new company, and
mhm.
you figured you would educate yourself as much as possible on, you're just going to figure out what type of investment you want to do.
Yeah. So I started looking at personal finance podcasts, just cast a really wide net.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a while to get to real estate. I mean, I had read Rich Dad Poor Dad, but I was living in Boston at the time, and real estate's crazy expensive. And so the farthest that I could think at that time was, okay, maybe I'll buy a duplex and get roommates. That was like my grand plan with real estate. And then I was looking at like, okay, how do I save money on taxes? Okay, how can I travel without spending my own money? Like I started getting into all these different ideas, and I did kind of jump into them a little bit. But after doing that, I was like, I could still feel like my head bumping up against this like ceiling. I was like, there's only so far this is going to take me. And I'm an ambitious person, I don't like ceilings. I want to be able to create my own destiny, or at least have more,
The option to create your own destiny.
yeah, more influence over my own destiny. Right. So that's when I actually found BiggerPockets, the real estate community, the website, starting off with the podcast. And that's when I learned what was possible through real estate, that I'd been thinking way too small, and that there was actually the possibility to do like big things with it, And so as I started listening to these podcasts, I was like, all right, I think this might be a good fit for me. I love business. I'm good at understanding businesses and processes. And I love houses. I always had. It was just this weird thing. And yeah, it was something that it just felt like a good fit, So spent the next 2 years researching while I was in grad school, while I was working a full-time job. So that meant every time I was driving home, podcast was on in the car. I was on vacation in Italy on a beach. I had a book on long distance real estate investing in my hands on the beach. It would start raining. I'd go in, pull up my computer. It'd be great. I'd be drinking a cappuccino, watching the rain on the beach, typing up my notes on how to vet property managers. Like it was constant, but that's fine. Like I loved it. It was leading me to a future that I could live my best life.
Yeah. Sweet.
So then 2 years passed by, I started to get a little bit more money saved up. And then that's when things got really hard, because as a new investor, without having any properties, like I didn't know which end was up. And I was very fiscally conservative with my background, not having much money and all of that. So it was hard for me to take the plunge. I was bouncing around between different markets. I was in Kansas City one weekend, and then I saw a quadplex come up on BiggerPockets for sale in my hometown of Bradenton, Florida. And then I was interested in Indianapolis, and then I was looking at turnkey properties, and then some guy called me wanting to JV, and I was in a million different directions, not knowing exactly what I wanted to do, even though I thought I already set up my mind on what I wanted to do. And I think that's really important, and that's okay, because that allowed me to explore all these different options and really take a hard look at what I wanted out of my future and what kind of risk I was willing to take.
Yeah. That is a big thing, because people tend to get analysis paralysis or whatever, especially so they decide, like you said, they decide on the direction you want to go. Okay, I want to go into real estate investing. Well, then you open that real estate investing door, and there's 40 million different options of what to do. And when you're new, you're like, oh my God, like what? Okay.
Exactly.
And then a lot of people, myself included, almost feel like, well, I don't know if I want to buy this deal here because I feel like maybe I'm missing out on better deals somewhere else, or maybe a better route to go down this street, or whatever. So I definitely understand what you're talking about. So how did you kind of choose the actual direction you were going to go?
It was based upon my risk tolerances and what I wanted out of my future. So I talked about how I could see my coworkers not having options.
Mm-hmm.
There was that, so I wanted something that would have passive income long-term. Also, yeah, I joke about dropping out of school after 6th grade, but that doesn't mean that I didn't work really hard, even
Mm-hmm.
well before then. I was training, and there's been probably one time in my life from the time I was maybe 9 years old that I didn't work my butt off. And that was a 3-month stint when I studied abroad in Greece.
Wow.
even that was a fiscally conservative decision because I had scholarships and other people pay for it. So, but like I've always been working, and these haven't been necessarily easy professions. They're stressful. They take a toll on your mind and your body, a big one. And so I decided that when I got to the point where when I had the option to do what I wanted with my life, I wanted something that was more stress-free and something that I could count on, So a lot of people in the financial independence, like retire early world, they do like the index funds, and they're just these different vehicles where they can invest and like compound and save money. But that wouldn't have given me the peace of mind that I needed.
Right.
And I didn't want to flip because that involved a lot of capital. That was still a lot of risk, and you make money only when you're active. I didn't want to necessarily wholesale full time, same thing. I was long-term buy and hold was the best fit for what I needed.
Okay, long-term buy and hold. Yeah, no, I understand that. So you were in the Boston market and you realized that was kind of too expensive because you're looking around at a duplex for $600 or $800,000.
At least, and not in a
So right, not in a good area. um, so then you decided to look at different markets. How did you end up deciding on Indianapolis?
I had a couple markets that I was interested in, but at the end of the day, like Indianapolis was performing very well economically. I looked at a bunch of economic statistics, and compared them all to the U.S. national average, including population growth and all these different things. And Indianapolis was outperforming the national average across the board. Also had like good price to rent ratios. So I knew that there was a decent spread between what my mortgage would be and what I could rent if I was able to find those deals. And the last piece that came into play, because there were a couple places in the US that had those characteristics, but the last piece that really drove it home for me was the team that I could build there. So you can have the best deal, you can have the real estate agent, you can have the contractor, but you need someone really good to be looking over your property, because they're going to be the ones that will make the decisions day to day, the smaller ones, and if you can't rely on them, if they don't pay you out, like all the other pieces can be in place, but they can ruin your life out of stress or out of mismanaging your property and everything else. And I found someone who I really trusted, who was hungry, and who I knew would do a good job, who was highly skilled. So she was what actually sold Indianapolis at the end, because I was like, I know I can grow my portfolio. And again, it comes back to not worrying. There are going to be worries. It's not completely passive, but I knew I would have someone good on my side to help me get to where I wanted to go.
Cool. Okay. So we'll dive into how you found and came across this awesome property manager. So tell me, what was your first deal that you did? I know that you ended up moving to Indianapolis. So kind of let us know more about that, and then about your first deal, and we'll get into specifics of it.
Okay. So property manager, first deal, moved to Indianapolis. Did I?
Well, yeah,
Right?
well, I don't know where the move came. Did you buy the first property before you moved to Indianapolis, or did you move and then buy the property?
So first I found the property manager through networking. I was on BiggerPockets, and it was just like, hey, this person said I should meet that person, said I should meet that person. Eventually I found my property manager, and I just look for people who had good intentions. The first person that I met who started this all off, she has 2 properties, and she's working full time, and she's got her own thing going. I was completely new to the game, but I felt like we developed a good rapport, and so she gave me these connections, and she really truly meant well. Like I could feel that. Whereas you definitely have to take people with a grain of salt when you network in this industry, because there's so much money to be made that leads people awry, and everyone has their own biases, even if they haven't been led awry, that allow them to think differently than you. So you always have to kind of understand who you're talking to. And she and I were pretty aligned, and we understood each other. So I knew I could trust her contacts. And so it just kind of went for me kind of jumping from one person to the next, just meeting people, talking to them. And eventually I found my property manager. So really, like, everyone says it, but I can't emphasize this enough. This entire world, if you want any success, it's all about networking, and networking is nothing more than making friends.
Yeah, no, definitely. I've mentioned that a couple of times on the podcast, and yeah, it's huge. So you kind of had a different way. Most people, when they're finding their first property, they decide they want to buy a rental property or their first house. So the first thing they do is find the agent, and then the agent kind of leads into other stuff. But you kind of decided on that. You had a couple areas figured out, so you decided to network and meet some people. You found an awesome property manager that you just couldn't live without in Indianapolis, and you said, "Okay, this is it." Yeah, this is it. So you found the property manager first. How did you end up finding the deal? Did you go through her, or did she refer you to an agent?
She has her own brokerage, so she had an agent working under her. So she referred me to him. And fun fact, he had just joined the brokerage. So when I purchased my house, that was his first deal with them. He had moved from like the residential piece to a more investment focused role here. So we always joke about that, how I was his first deal too.
Okay, cool.
But so this deal, it's the only deal that I have found off of the MLS that I've done, completed off of the MLS. It surprised, I mean, very surprisingly, because it was in a good area. So my investment approach up till now had been conservative, surprisingly. So I was in Boston, not having had been to Indiana, having had what I thought was thorough book knowledge. I mean, it worked out in my favor, but had done a ton of research. But like any city, there are areas that are good, there are areas that are bad, that can change block to block. Indianapolis is no outlier to that. Like, that's still the case here. So I had to choose an area where I felt safe investing, given that scenario, given the fact that I do believe that there's going to be some sort of recession or correction coming up. Who knows when, who knows how much, but something's going to happen eventually. And I wanted to have a good asset to kind of ride that. Like, I didn't want to be in a C- class neighborhood where people would have probably more trouble like paying the rents. I would have higher vacancies, higher eviction rates, that sort of thing. I didn't want that. And also looking at it long term. So like actually all of my investment properties are in probably like B+ neighborhoods. They're in neighborhoods where, I mean, I wish I was living there now. I'm not. but these are all areas that will continue to demand stable, mature tenants over time. And so my cash flow may be slightly lower. Like, these deals that I've closed are around 1.3 to 1.4 price to rent ratio. They're not in the 2% range like you can get if you are going into a C neighborhood downtown. But I know that over time, I'll be able to have higher rents. I'll have lower evictions, lower vacancies. Example is one, I closed on a property end of last year, and there were tenants on, it was a duplex, tenants on one side, they were paying 25% below market. I needed them to stay. I didn't care that they were paying 25% at the time, because I had closed on a 3-unit deal, like a duplex and a single family at the same time. And there were just so many expenses coming at me at once for renovations. And I was like, I don't care. Just let them stay. And please pay me rent. Please only.
Yeah.
Eventually I got everything stabilized. And finally it went back to them and was like, okay, like, we need to kind of talk about this rent situation, et cetera. And they decided to move on just fine. Like, that's what worked for them. So, and this was actually about a month and a half ago. So I renovated the place, and it's in a great school district, but literally the place went on the market a week before school started. And I was like, oh my God. Who am I going to find? Most people are families, and this is like a family area. It's like a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, bought it for families. And most people are moving well before school starts. And I'm just like, well, thank God I have it before school officially starts, but most of the summer's gone. Most people have made their move. Like,
Yeah.
what am I going to do now? Area I bought, again, lower cash, lower price to rent ratio. However, this place was booked in 2 days. I got the renovation complete in like 2 or 3 weeks. was a big like cosmetic renovation, but I had renters in 2 days after putting it on the market. And that's the kind of low stress business model I was building as my foundation. Now I may not stay there, but at the beginning, that was what I needed to kind of be able to project my cash flows, understand the business, understand what was going on, the different nuances that maybe I wasn't aware of until I got into it.
Okay, cool. So, um, back to the first deal real quick. So you found the property manager. The property manager was a broker, so introduced you to one of her agents that helped you find this first property. What type of property was the first one? Single family or multifamily? The very first.
It's a multifamily. Well, it's not technically a duplex. So there is a main house,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's a detached carriage house in the back.
Okay.
So I actually saw the listing like in November or December, but that was before I was quite ready to pull the trigger. I didn't know, and then it went off the market in 2 days.
Okay.
And as I'm continuing to look at properties in areas that are not as good, don't have the same returns, I'm just like kicking myself. Like I should have jumped on it. I should have. Lo and behold, 30 days later or something, it comes back on the market. And I called my agent because I was working on another property that also fell through. So I called my agent. I was like, put an offer on this full asking price, because even at full asking, it was a great deal in a great area. I mean, today, there's no way you're finding a house anywhere close to that price point in that area. There's no way.
Yeah. So how much did you end up getting that property for?
95.
95 grand. And then what is the rents on those 2 units?
So the front unit is a 2-1, renting that out for 800. That was also at a funny time period. Given the area, I could probably have gotten a little bit more had I wanted to wait a little longer, but I didn't. So I got a 2-year, and I asked them for a 2-year lease, which they agreed to, which is really nice. Lowers my vacancy for that first year, because right now, like, I'm still early enough in the game where I'm reliant heavily on my W-2 income. So anytime I have another vacancy or turnover, it hits.
Yeah.
It hits, you know? So I just wanted to keep them in there. And then the carriage house was getting 500 a month. But that was like with a very basic cosmetic renovation. It wasn't that great. I didn't know what I was doing. If I knew what I was doing, I would have probably had a little more control over, I would have exercised a little more control over like the color choices and how to make this aesthetically pleasing and that sort of thing. But I left it up to the contractors, which was, I don't know, it was stupid, but
Yeah.
they didn't do a bad job.
That's
But
okay.
they
Yeah.
did what could have been done.
Right. Yeah. So
Um,
that, I mean, that's not too bad though. So 1,300 a month for a $95,000 purchase. And that's a
in
good
a good
deal
area, in a
in a
very
good
good
area, in a great
area.
area.
And that
Okay.
carriage house, actually now I am turning, because it is detached. It is a 1-1, and it's near like some concert centers and stuff. And you've been to Indianapolis, obviously, I met you here, but Indianapolis is very spread out. So from where I live now to get up to where those properties are, it can take about an hour. So there's like a concert center. There's all these things up there. So I'm actually turning the carriage house into an Airbnb. See what
Okay.
happens.
So this is in northern Indiana or northern Indianapolis area,
Yeah,
right?
just it's not an Indianapolis address. It's like just a little bit north of Indianapolis. It's technically another town, but it's the Indianapolis area for
Oh,
sure.
what town is it?
Noblesville.
Noblesville. Okay. So you got this property you got the property under contract. You end up closing on the deal. You rented it out for a great return. I'm sure it's cash flowing well. What was some of the mistakes that you made in purchasing the property because it was the first property you'd done? Was
I
any?
didn't pay enough attention to the layouts. So it's an old house. It was built in 1900. The layouts are just really weird, which can deter certain people from wanting to live there, or like being popular to a mass group. So like one room has kind of a closet, the second room doesn't, and it's small, and it's kind of got this weird kind of path that winds to this house to get to the kitchen, which is way in the back. And I mean, I still would do the deal because location is great, but
Yeah.
those are the kinds of things you have to be aware of.
Yeah.
Which
Going forward.
yeah, and then again with the renovation, like exercise more control, understand small things like paint choices can actually have a big impact
Right.
on whether a place is aesthetically pleasing. And
So maybe if somebody was buying a deal that had like slimmer numbers or slimmer margins, then maybe that's something more to look at. Like the unique houses, although they might be cool to you, not you personally, but the buyer, they're not always going to be cool to tenants. So if you have, like I said, like slimmer margins, maybe it's not the best house to buy for your first property because it might lead to more vacancy or something, right?
yeah, because at the end of the day, you're not living there. Yep,
Right.
other people are. So you need to make sure that it is appealing to the majority of people.
Cool. Okay. So how did you end up financing that deal? Did you use conventional financing?
25% down.
25% down. Okay. Well, that's okay. I mean, that just increases your
I
cash
mean,
flow.
it's not like I've really financed too many differently from that, but that hits you again when you're new and starting out with the W-2 income and using that to support everything. It's hard to keep the momentum going, keep doing deals when you have to put down 25% on every property.
Right. Yeah. And okay, so did you end up moving to Indianapolis right after that, or had you already been there? Or it took kind of a little while for you to move.
Yep. So I closed on that one in April, closed on 3 more doors last September, and then moved out here this April. So I was just kind of at a point where I had done well. I had gotten these 5 doors and like they're all in similar areas. I was happy, very happy with that, but I didn't have a ton of cash left. And as an out-of-state investor, people hear you're like from the coast, and all of a sudden their prices are like 2 times higher than you would have thought you should be paying. And then I had like local friends who were getting like just finding these amazing deals, building the connections, making friends, knowing what was going on. And I had none of that. And I was like, okay, I mean, I can stay here and keep working, but like my growth is going to be really slow because now I'm probably going to be sitting out for the next year because I don't know anyone who's going to sell or finance. I can't find these deals. My returns are 25% lower than what locals are getting. Like either I'm in or I'm not, you
Yeah.
know?
Well,
So I decided to double down and talk to my company and ask them if I could keep my job, but just do it in Indiana. And thankfully they agreed. I'm so lucky to be able to do that. So I moved out here earlier this year. Haven't added a ton to my portfolio this year, not gonna lie. So I had to get another house. House hacking. You can't see, but this place has been a disaster for the last 3 months doing cosmetic renovations. The kitchen is still like, don't even. So I'm going to be house hacking this, and I'm kind of building the business to support the real estate growth. And come winter, come next year, I'll be hitting the acquisition parts hard again.
yeah, no, that's awesome. So the reason I kind of made sure to bring up the fact that you ended up moving from Boston to Indianapolis is because, a lot of people like myself, I couldn't really ask my boss if I could like leave and go work remotely, but there is a lot of people that might be able to do that. So if you're not ready full on to like quit your job or whatever,
Yeah.
just like the networking, you never know who you're going to meet. I think it's really important just to ask questions for
Yes.
all issues in your life because you never
Yes.
know what people are going to
Exactly.
say. And
I mean,
so,
that's like how I ended up at that college on that full, like you just have to talk to people. You never know. It's not like you're going around asking people, hey, can you do this for me? Hey, I want this. But if you just kind of like put it out there and you're like, well, this is what I'm interested in, and like kind of see where it falls. Sometimes things happen,
yeah,
and if you really need something, like I really needed to move to Indiana and they say no,
well,
okay,
at
like,
least you tried.
yeah, and figure out what the next step can be. There's always a way to optimize. You just kind of have to optimize the situation. You just kind of have to figure out how. And if people say no or reject you, it is what it is. At least you tried and you'll find something else that works.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So Sunny here, she ended up, moving from Boston and making the plunge because she knew that she really wanted to go farther in this real estate investing thing, and she knew she could get better deals, learn the market better, and just really hit the ground running when she moved there. So good job. I mean, that's awesome that you
Thank
were
you.
able to do that, and it's working out well. So let's go to where you are now. You had 5 doors when you ended up moving to Indy. And I think you just maybe bought one more since you've been there, just the house you're in and your house hacking it, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So my growth this year in terms of acquisitions has slowed a little bit. So when I was buying these properties last year, I was doing the renovations that definitely needed to be done, like if they were like I needed new HVACs, 2 sets of new HVACs for that first place, definite cosmetic renos in 2 other places. And so I was doing as much as I could, but it wasn't to where I truly wanted it to be, And so this year I've had 2 turnovers, one with the below market, one with the carriage house that's going to turn into an Airbnb, and then this place. So I have like 3 renovations to take care of and other CapEx things that have come along. So it's been a little bit slower, but I really think that solidifying kind of that foundation and putting the best product I can out on the market will help me grow more long term.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And sometimes life just gets in the way and things are changing, so you kind of got to slow down at one spot to like go faster in the future. So that's what you're doing. So the house you got now, let's dive into that a little bit. So you bought a single family house on the other side of Indianapolis from where you had kind of started investing. How did you find this house? Was it through the same agent that you found your other properties, or you said you
Yeah,
didn't buy any more? Oh, it was okay.
it was the same agent, but so he brought the 3 doors I closed on in September to me off market, and he brought this one too. And this one's actually a really funny story. So I was visiting Indianapolis last like April, May, Cinco de Mayo. I was here for Cinco de Mayo.
Okay, yeah.
I remember that because I ran into a few people I'd worked with who were inebriated.
Cinco de Mayo, that's what does it.
Exactly. So I was at the time looking for another acquisition. And so my agent's friend lived here. This was his house. And he was thinking of selling it. He was an absentee landlord, worked out of state, was trying to sell, was managing this on his own. And it just wasn't working out well for him. Try to do seller financing. So where he would be the bank and I would pay him on the note, but his mortgage wasn't assumable. So there was a clause saying that there couldn't be another person kind of taking over the payments, essentially, because I didn't have the money to another 25% for this place to put down. So that was why I needed seller financing at that point. It didn't work. And I tried to make it work, try to find other ways around it, creative ways. It just wasn't clicking. And so I was like, all right, I have to bow out. He ended up not selling it, got another tenant in. I moved here and was talking to my agent, and he knew I wanted something to house hack. I was thinking more along the lines of like duplexes, but my budget wasn't at the point where I could get a duplex in an area where I'd feel safe living in, because again, Indianapolis changes block to block, and I wasn't finding anything for a little while. And then he calls me up and he's like, hey, you remember that house south side? And I was like, yeah, what about it? He goes, yeah, guy's looking to sell again. And I was like, wait a second, that would be like the perfect house hack, because I mean, you can't see, it's pretty spacious, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. I can get 2 roommates in, cover my mortgage. That's my plan as soon as it stops looking like a construction zone. But yeah, so I'm house hacking this. And once I get this stabilized and my Airbnb stabilized, life will be much better.
Cool. So you couldn't get a loan because the 25% down or whatever. How did you end up financing this deal? Did you owner finance?
No, I didn't have him finance it this time. I did it conventionally, but living in it, I was able to I only put down like 7% or something.
Oh, sweet.
So it's pretty sweet. Yeah. So I put down 7%, even with the, that extra amount being amortized over the 30 years. Once I get roommates in, it'll still be really great. And once I finish getting it fixed up, I'll get a HELOC on this and I'll be able to definitely pull out some funds in order to reinvest.
Okay. So have you done any research as to how much you think you're going to be able to rent each room out for in this house? Yeah, of course you have, but so how did you, well, I know you have, but how much, or how did you go about finding what those rents would be, so you knew it was going to be like a good viable option?
That just came from knowing the area. Like I've been looking at properties for the last year and change. And then when you're looking at 2-1s, you also see what rooms are available for rent. You just see what's going on. So I just knew I could probably get like 500 or whatever, something along those lines for each room.
Right. Okay. Cool.
There's just things to pick up as you keep looking at the market. It's not like every time you have a new question, you're starting off at ground zero trying to get yourself up to speed and how to answer that specific question. Sometimes you just pick things up by being
right in the
active.
game. Right.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, cool. Was there anything that went wrong in this deal, or things that you might have done differently for this house purchase, or?
I probably would have looked a little bit more closely at renovation costs. So it's definitely costing a little bit more than I thought, but not by that much. I think I thought I could be like, yeah, I don't need a new sink. I don't need this. It'll be fine. I'm just going to live here. But then I got here and I was like, that sink's gross.
Yeah.
I don't want to get this, or that cabinet's about to fall on me. So that needs to be taken out, so just little things like that. But they're not big expenditures, and I was able to save money by like finding networking and finding a different kind of person to help with the renos and a handyman instead of like a GC and that sort of thing. So I was able to save a ton of money in terms of that. So I think at the end of the day, it evens out, but I wouldn't really say any mistakes. It's just been a huge learning experience because I'm doing all the non-technical work myself. So I'm not putting the sink in, but did help with the flooring. I didn't do most of it, but I did help. Painted, like did all of that stuff. So it's been a huge learning experience, which is good.
Yeah, no, that's good, and you're learning things too, to where the more rehabs you do in the future, even if you have GCs do it, you're just more familiar with what they're going to do and maybe the prices and different things, so you don't
kind of save money and yeah, definitely.
Well, that's good. Cool. Well, I'm excited for everything you've done so far. You've done a great job, and the main point really that I wanted you on the podcast was because you took that step and asked questions, got to work remotely, and moved to Indianapolis, which is, I'm kind of doing the same thing, moving out to Idaho, just because I know I can have much more success being in the market. You know what I mean? So that's cool. That's awesome. Let's kind of move to our next section here, which is, I keep wanting to call it like quick tips, but I can't because BiggerPockets has got that, or the famous something, but
famous
so anyways, I'm going to figure out a good, yeah.
I'm sure we can find something else with some cool alliteration.
I think so. I think I'm going to figure it out, but for now I'm just going to call it our next questions. I guess something dumb. But anyways, what is, you had mentioned that you were listening to tons of podcasts at this point in your career. What is your favorite resource for learning more about real estate? Is it books or podcasts or seminars? What is the main one you like to learn from?
So I wish I could do books more, but I don't have a ton of time to read. And Audible, I should really force my brain to listen to Audible. I struggle a little bit. I start to wander off as the same voice keeps talking. So really for me, it comes down to podcasts. When it comes to real estate, like BiggerPockets, I'm all about the informational podcasts. I don't do any sort of fictional entertainment only podcast because
you're focused
and things I want to do.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, if I need time for my brain to relax, it's not going to relax by listening to someone else. Like I need like music or something like that will truly allow my brain to turn off. But yeah, like BiggerPockets is my big thing. And there's just different ones depending on what you like, what works for you, and what you're looking for. Because at the end of the day, you just need to find something that works for you. It doesn't matter what it is. People will say, this sucks, that sucks, you should optimize doing this. But it's like anything else. It's going to be what you return to the most and stick with that will truly make an impact.
Yeah, no, right on. Cool. So what about a favorite app? Is there something you use all the time that makes your life way easier?
Instagram?
No, yeah,
I'm joking. No.
That could be it. I don't know. It's whatever.
No, I feel stupid saying that. I don't know.
I mean, you didn't say Tinder or anything, so I mean,
that would have been quite the stretch.
Right.
The fun fact, this is completely off subject. This is just showing how ridiculous I am. So I think back in like January, I was on Tinder in Boston for like a minute. And anytime I saw someone who was like a real estate investor, it didn't even matter. I'd be like, oh, cool, I'll swipe right. And then I'd like start talking about real estate and then they'd ghost me and I'd be like, okay.
Oh, that's a good networking program. Maybe that's a future.
I mean, it wasn't intentional. I was like that disinterested in actually, I guess, meeting someone and that interested in real estate. That's just I don't.
Yeah.
Let's get
Anyways,
back on. Let's
yeah.
get
So your favorite app is where we were going.
Yeah. So favorite app, I'm all about kind of educating yourself. So I think like the BiggerPockets app has helped me a lot. So I would probably, recommend that because like you can dial into the forums and what have you
Hmm.
and read what people are saying or like whatever's going on. Yeah.
Cool.
That's really the only thing that I would truly kind of recommend.
Okay. And the next thing I would ask is like a mindset tip. Do you like working out or meditating or something that kind of gets your mind like we're all so stressed out, especially real estate investors. We're like squirrel all the time, you know? So
So this is a big thing for me. So gonna get real for like a second here.
okay.
So in terms of mindset, I think it's really important to be holistic about it because yeah, we're focused on real estate. We're really intense. We work all the time. It's always like the hustle life, the grind life. And that's important if you're going to set yourself up for your future. But you also, and I am really bad at this. This is something that I have literally been forced to focus on and to understand because I've paid the price. So look at your life holistically. You need to pay attention to like your physical health and your mental health. So coming from an area where you literally sacrifice everything to get to your goals, the sporting arena, I've taken that with me into like the rest of my life. And that has been problematic. So up until like this last year, I was that person who would work all the time. And as I was saying, you know, like grad school, working full time, still studying real estate, I would keep going until if I was able to have a weekend off or vacation, and then I would get sick every time, like clockwork, physically sick. I was in Denver for like 5 days on one of the first vacations I had taken in like 2 or 3 years, sick as a dog. My ex-boyfriend was driving because I had to work on a PowerPoint, but I'm literally coughing and falling asleep as I'm trying to get to the PowerPoint, as we're on our way to a concert. Like it was crazy, crazy. So like that was step number one. I still didn't listen, you know, because I was like, I got this. I can push through. It's just a cough. No. Then you're talking about the stress, and I talked about like how different aspects of your life can really take a toll on your mental health. That's my story. So 2019, stuff hit the fan. So I moved across the country, heavy workload, all these ambitions. Straight up, I have severe anxiety that I'm trying to work through, and also deal with certain aspects of PTSD through things we haven't talked about this during this recording. But having all these things kind of come to a head when I have a heavy work schedule and I don't take the time to meditate, to listen to how my body's feeling, to realizing that I'm just so stressed out that I'm about to crack. And doing that for years, also why acquisitions have slowed in 2019,
Yeah.
because there was a time where I needed to take, like right after I moved, I was honestly a mess. I would get like assignments and I would have full blown panic attacks, like not be able to like really function. And then these would last for like days and I'd like still be pushing through and I'd be like, okay, I can't breathe, but like, I'm going to get this out. Okay. I can't breathe, but I'm gonna go look at this house. All right. Like my heart's pounding on my chest, but I'm going to figure out what's going on with this renovation. Like I was still going, and that wasn't good, you know? And that was also a massive blow to my identity because I was that person who could work everyone else under the table, you know, and to get to a point where I could barely handle my own job and like the minimal tasks, what I consider minimal of properties that were already up and running, like that destroyed me. But
Yeah.
taking the time, I finally was like, I just need to stop and like figure out what's going on and take the time to like, it sounds lame, but like sit with it and get myself to a better place. Fast forward 4 months later, I'm still working through things, still figuring things out. It's still not easy, but I'm definitely in a better place. And now I have all these opportunities coming in where if I didn't take that time 3 months ago to kind of recalibrate and reset, I'd still be screwed up now, still be having like panic attacks every week, still be struggling every time anything came in. And I wouldn't be able to take advantage of the opportunities that are now coming my way. So taking a breath in the short term to make sure that you as a human are okay is everything. And we need to be hearing more of this, because a lot of people deal with it, but nobody talks about it. And I'm that person that talks about everything that comes up, I don't care if it's good or bad. And then all of a sudden I have friends around me going, yeah, I have agoraphobia. Yeah, I have this. And I'm like, I've known you for a decade. How do I? And
Yeah,
it's just,
I understand.
But yeah, so it's like, I cannot stress enough. It is so important.
Yeah, I mean, and me and my wife definitely feel the same because, like to take care of yourself, eat right, work out, or meditate, or do something that kind of like de-stresses your body, because you can just go all the time. Which it's not taking anything away from being a hard worker. You still need to like bust your ass and do things, but at the same time, you need to like take the time for yourself, because we're doing this real estate investing, trying to get ahead so we can enjoy our life more. And all those things, if you go and like you're having anxiety attacks and panic attacks or whatever, all this stress building up, that's going to take years off your life down the road. There's tons of research and science out there that links.
Exactly. And what is the point of hustling and building this massive real estate empire if you're going to have a heart attack in 10 years? What
Yeah.
is?
Well, and not just heart attack, chronic stress, and then you eat bad and then you don't sleep, then body's not recovering. And then that leads to inflammation in your body, and inflammation, all these things, cancer, diabetes, heart disease,
Oh,
Alzheimer's, dementia, all this stuff just
definitely.
goes, I could go on forever. And
So like I have some issues with like my vagal nerve. So that is like your fight or flight response. It has to
mhm.
do with like my anxiety, etc. I will have these episodes every now and then where if I experience severe pain, it's like my brain shuts down. So I've literally, and that has to do with how I've dealt with stress. So literally a year and a half ago, I had an episode where I hit my elbow on the refrigerator, had a seizure, had to go to the emergency room
Oh my
because of
goodness.
how I dealt with stress.
Wow.
I didn't know how to stop or shut down. Like, I was in bad shape. So that is why I cannot stress enough. Like, get
Take care of
yourself
yourself.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, definitely. Great tip. Okay. Well, thanks for that. That's good.
Off
Everybody
the
needs to know that.
soapbox.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's excellent. It's excellent advice. I wholeheartedly agree. So last question. Some type of social media influencer that you like to follow that really like gives out good advice, good tips. It's not just full of shit and trying to sell you, whatever they're trying to sell. Who would that be?
Um, so this goes back to like the holistic perspective. I really like Ray Dalio. So his Instagram is basically all of his work principles, and that he comes out with a different thing every day. And for him, those are marketed as work principles, but I really believe those are life principles, because those are really good kind of ethical, morally grounding sentiments. And again, being in an arena where so many people are swayed to make less than ethical choices, or less than fully ethical choices, because of the money that's on the line, I really like for that piece to always be at the forefront of my mind, because it could be easy, if you have something to sell or something that you don't fully agree with, but then like you have to come back to your values and what's really true and what's the right thing to do for other people. So,
Right. Right
right.
on. Yeah, that's good stuff. Okay, well, Sunny, where can people find out more about you, or if they want to connect with you, how can they do that?
So my email address is Sunitha, Sunitha at Griffix Property Group. Griffix is spelled Griffix. Are you going to put these on your show notes or anything like
Yep,
that? Oh,
all this will be on the
I
show
want to
notes
spell
and
it out.
links and everything. No, that's good. That's good for us to know.
And I also have an Instagram, Griffix Property Group. However, it is very new. So you'll have to bear with me while I figure out how to be professional.
No, definitely. Well, hopefully you get some followers out of it.
Probably not going to happen. I'll just tell you that much. But
Well, you're very well put together, and you're doing great things there, and very happy to have you on here, and look forward to having you back in a couple years when you have 500 units in Indianapolis.
right back at you. It'll be nice to see how we both grow in the next few years.
Right on. Well, Sunny, thanks for being here. You have a good evening, and I'll talk to you
Thanks
soon.
for having me. Have a
All
good
right.
night.
See ya.